Hey everyone, welcome into yet another TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and today I'm going to break down one of the most interesting stories, not on the good side, in U.S. cannabis right now. It involves the 24% wholesale tax hike in Michigan that's sparking protests, legal threats, and fears that the state's market could collapse under its own weight. So here's my take. This isn't just about another state raising taxes. It's about what happens when policy gets detached from market reality. Michigan's cannabis industry has already been pushed to the brink by unlimited licensing, plummeting wholesale prices, and market oversaturation. And now with this new tax, it could accelerate what I'd like to call a quasi-monopolization, where a few well-financed operators slowly dominate as independents disappear. That is the reality that actually Michigan has been facing for quite some time. So let's all unpack it here in today's show: the policy, the backlash, the lawsuit threats, and what it all means on the national level as well. So let's get into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie. All right, let's begin off the top, where Michigan lawmakers recently approved a 24% wholesale cannabis tax, which is scheduled to take effect in January of 2026. They're projecting it'll raise around $420 million per year for roads and infrastructure. But for licensed operators, this isn't just a tax, it's a body blow to say the least. Hundreds of industry members and advocates flooded the state capitol in protest, calling it a move that will tax legal operators out of existence, and they have a point. And that's not an exaggeration. Michigan's cannabis market is already one of the toughest in the country because the state chose an unlimited licensing model. There has been a flood of new dispensaries and cultivators, far more than demand can support. So what's that translate into? Oversupply, wholesale price collapse, and a brutal race to the bottom. So for example, in some parts of the state, ounces are selling for less than $70, prices that make profitable almost impossible. So when lawmakers add yet another 24% wholesale tax on top of that, they're not taxing success, they're taxing survival. And this is where the unintended consequences kick in. That kind of pressure, it doesn't level the playing field. It leads to market concentration, where smaller independents close and larger multi-store operators take over. Heck, even Terracin walked away from this market. So it's not a free market, it's consolidation disguised as regulation. You can bet on that one. And another thing you can bet on is our friends over at Morgan & Morgan, who have this to say. Hey everyone, there's a reason smart investors celebrate when their portfolio jumps 40% in a year, just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Think about it. When you're investing, you want the right team in your corner. The same is true if you're injured in dealing with an insurance company. And that is where Morgan & Morgan comes into the equation. Why? Well, they've got more than 1,000 attorneys and over 100 offices nationwide, and they've been fighting for people for over 35 years. And their track record is hard to ignore. Let me explain a little bit further. Case in point, in Florida, a client was offered $350,000, but walked away with $12 million. In Pennsylvania, another client, they turned $650,000 offer into $26 million. That's a 40x return. So in total, Morgan & Morgan, they've recovered more than $25 billion for over 500,000 clients. So really, when you hire him, it's like bringing in a legal army that has your back. Because if you're injured due to someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. And let's be honest, not all law firms are created equal. But with Morgan & Morgan, their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim right now by clicking the link in the description below, or by scanning this QR code on your screen with your phone. At the end of the day, if you want what you deserve, make sure you go in with the right team by contacting Morgan & Morgan today. Now, let's get back to the rest of our video. All right, let's now pick up at our second segment of today's video. It's the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, who is already preparing to sue over this new tax. What's their argument? The 2018 voter-approved legalization law set the rules for how cannabis could be taxed and regulated. By adding a new 24% wholesale levy, lawmakers are changing the terms without voter consent, potentially violating the Michigan Constitution. So this is building. So in other words, the state made a deal with voters in 2018, and now it's rewriting the deal. Doesn't make sense. So if the MCIA files suit, this could become one of the most significant cannabis legal battles in the country. A win would establish the states can't overhaul cannabis tax structures without voter approval. A loss would then open the door for other states to follow Michigan's lead, treating cannabis like a never-ending revenue source rather than an industry trying to find its footing. So either way, the legal and political stakes are extremely high. Michigan is a big market, but it's state's faced a lot of challenges. So really, Michigan's story, it's really a warning to the rest of the country. With over $3.2 billion in annual sales, it's one of the largest cannabis markets in the US, but it's also one of the most volatile because of how it was built. Again, I'll say unlimited license. It sounded fair in theory, let the market decide who survives, but really in practice, it's created chaos. Too much supply, falling margins, and now policies that push the smallest players to the edge. So that's how a quasi-monopolization happens. Not through corporate takeovers, but through attrition. Small businesses quietly vanish while the bigger operators consolidate market share. And we've seen a lot of consolidation right now in that state. We've also seen it before in states like Oregon, California. Unrestrained licensing plus excessive taxation equals market collapse. And now you have Michigan, who's risking to join that list unless lawmakers rethink their approach here. Because when you break the balance between opportunity and sustainability, you don't just lose the businesses, you lose trust in legalization itself. Illicit market knocking at the door. So if this feels familiar, it's because it mirrors what's happening at the federal level right now. Washington keeps hinting that rescheduling cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 is coming soon, but the timeline keeps slipping. And because of this, that delay gives states like Michigan the freedom or temptation to overtax and overregulate, filling the policy vacuum that the federal government refuses to address. This is what's happening in a lot of states right now. And here's the irony. Politicians love to tout cannabis revenue, but they rarely build sustainable frameworks to protect the businesses generating from it. They're quick to take, but slow to stabilize. Michigan's situation again shows how fragile legalization is still without federal clarity. Every time states overreach, it reinforces the perception that the legal market can't sustain itself, when really the problem is political opportunism, not consumer demand. So next up, what happens next? Where does this all go from here? Well, there's three things to watch. One, the MCIA lawsuit. If it's filed, this could redefine the limits of state power over voter-approved cannabis laws. Number two is legislative revisions. Under pressure, lawmakers could backtrack, lowering the rate or phasing it in. Some Democrats are already signaling they might not support the 24% figure. I hope not. Number three then is the market shakeout. Smaller operators will likely close or sell, and then consolidation will indeed accelerate. So the market will shrink, and that could have ripple effects not only in Michigan but across the U.S. cannabis sector, from valuations to investor confidence. So for anyone watching from outside Michigan, the takeaway is clear. If lawmakers don't balance tax policy with market realities, they risk killing the very industry they're trying to profit from. Short-term gain, long-term pain, politicians. Hello? So really, here is the bottom line. Michigan's 24% cannabis tax isn't just fiscal policy, it's a stress test for the entire legalization movement. You've got unlimited licensing and oversupply. They've already driven prices down into the ground. So when you add in an aggressive tax on top of that, you're effectively handling the market into whoever can afford to outlast everyone else. So really, that's not healthy capitalism, it's consolidation through policy. And really, let's face it, until governments start treating cannabis like an industry to be nurtured rather than squeezed, we're going to keep seeing stories like this, and that is the reality. So the voices are getting louder, and I think stuff like this is going to translate into a decision sooner rather than later out of Washington. These companies close means less job for the industry, and we all know this current administration is all about jobs. Get rescheduling, and those jobs become registered. So let's see what happens next in the state of Michigan, and really the impact it could have on various markets across the U.S. as well when it comes to regulated cannabis programs. That's it for today. For our latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchie, let us know in the comments below what you think of the state of Michigan and their cannabis program, and what you think could happen if indeed this tax hike is passed. As usual, if you like this breakdown, make sure to give this video a like, smash on that bell for all notifications, and greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe to us here at TDR, and check us out as well on TDR Plus. It's our premium content community group. We got lots of interesting information with some of the best insiders. Plus, we'll give you some analytic approaches on what you can expect on how this market from an investment standpoint is going to move next, not only the next couple of days, but over the next couple of weeks as well. You'll find all that at TDR Plus. You can join by clicking the join button below. That's it for today. And like I always say, stay open-minded, stay connected, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, everyone.